arrives the day quite like President Trump. He announced today a sweeping crime and homelessness crackdown in Washington, D.C., temporarily putting the feds in charge of the Metropolitan Police for 30 days. He is also deploying 800 National Guard troops to the streets. This is all part of his plan to liberate our nation's capital after a string of violent episodes that have left residents on edge. There was that brutal attack on a former DOJ staff.
So instead of saying, thank you, Mr. President, thank you for cleaning up the streets, thank you for making Washington, D.C., the American capital, a safe place to be for our legislators, a safe place to be for our politicians, instead of saying thank you, what they want to do is attack him and call him racist.
And just this past weekend, shots rang out at a big gathering of teenagers in the Navy Yard neighborhood.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. You're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. This dire public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left City Council adopted no cash bail. We will bring in the military if needed. We're going to restore the city back to the gleaming capital.
One of the great things about this 47 Trump instead of the 45 Trump is he stays on script a lot better. If you notice, he reads more. He'll always do his little ad lib, and that's great. But I think he stays on script more. It seems like whoever's writing the stuff or editing the stuff that he writes, they're coming up with stronger messages. Even his engagement with the press, it's still a little bit humorous than maybe what he was as the 45th president. I think this is a good thing.
That everybody wants it to be.
And here's a familiar face, U.S. Attorney for D.C., Jeanine Pirro, vowing to change the laws that protect violent young offenders.
She's tiny. Look at her. Look, I didn't realize when I used to see her on the 5. Look how small she's now. Trump and Hegseth and them, they are quite tall, but she looks like, she's on a field trip with her university or something, and they let her stand behind the podium.
Need to go after the D.C. Council and their absurd laws. The president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. These kids understand. I can't arrest them. I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today.
And D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser responding to the president, making the case that crime is down from previous years. Meanwhile, some in the media are suggesting there's a racial element to Trump's crackdown.
Before we get into that, have you noticed that the most crime-ridden cities, the mayors all tend to share a common trait? I'm not going to say what it is, but they all seem to share a common trait. Now, I don't know if statistically, so if you were to look at the top 10 most dangerous cities in New York, in the US, it seems like they would all, or most of them, more than 50% of them, will probably be democratically run cities. And I would Google that. Just take a Google and look and see what the 10 most dangerous cities are, and let's see what the mayors look like. I think they all have something in common. I don't know if that's coincidence, but they're going to start talking about race here. I'm going to go back a little bit. They're going to start talking about race here, and there just seems to be a common thread to all of these cities.
See you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. These kids understand. I can't arrest them. I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today.
And D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser responding to the president, making the case that crime is down from previous years. Meanwhile, some in the media are suggesting there's a racial element to Trump's crackdown.
They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown.
Can I just say, can we get some real black men? Can we get some real black men on these shows, man? It's disappointing. It is not representative of black men to have these guys there. And why does it seem like on all these shows that is the profile or that is the image of a black man that is being projected? But as I told you, they always come with the racist, sexist, homophobic, anything the Republicans do, that's what they describe it as.
Brown. Do you see that, and what do you think that means?
I think that I have been dealing kind of with this issue for a number of years. It's kind of easy fodder on the campaign trail.
All right, let me start with my former Washington, D.C. Capitol Hill neighbor, Charlie Hurt. It's one of these things that when you live in that city, you think, you wake up and you look at the Capitol, wow, it's so beautiful, it's so great. But you have that awareness around you, and it's gotten worse since I left.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that since if you look at the numbers and I'm always very skeptical about all the numbers, but just from 2012 to today.
Yeah, they use statistics to prove whatever it is they want them to prove. A little bit later, they're going to explain how some of these statistics that are being bantied about, DC having the safest year ever. The statistics are misleading, to say the least.
The murder rate itself has doubled. It's a serious problem, and it has been a serious problem for a long time. And I think that, and I love, and I agree, nobody can hold people's attention the way Donald Trump does. He used this press briefing to even pitch his new ballroom repeatedly. Yes. He never stopped selling. He keeps talking. He kept shouting out to the reporters in the room, I know you're all liberal, but you want to have a safe city. The place was absolutely jam-packed, I think, in at least some small part, because everybody in there does know the safety risks. And they do know people who have been mugged or shot or worse in the city. And the idea that you're going to hide behind this notion that, oh, this is an impossible problem that can never be fixed. And politicians, that's kind of like the last place they go when they don't want to face accountability for something, and they don't have any solutions for anything. They just say it's a problem that cannot be fixed. And we've heard this for years, for decades, about the Middle East. We've heard this for decades from both parties about the border. And Donald Trump came along and said, well, I'm not going to look at it the way you look at it and say that this is a problem that cannot be fixed.
And this is one of the strengths of this leader. As someone who's come from a property background, someone who's come from a business background, he views things differently. And that's not to say he gets everything right. I will always say that. But sometimes just coming at the problem from a different angle with a more divergent way of viewing it, you're going to get better outcomes. But politicians have always seemed to do the exact same things in the Middle East. With crime, I think we've gotten worse as far as how we deal with crime and letting people off and no cash bail and all of that. I don't know what that's about. And I certainly don't think that the people that are the most affected by crime are the ones coming up with these ideas. I think it's people who aren't impacted by these things, academics who can come up with an idea on paper that doesn't impact them when it's implemented. But the fact that Trump thinks outside the box, he comes at things from different angles. Sometimes he's just freestyling. And then that's one of the things that they criticize about him. He'll just say something that comes to his head, and it may not be a good idea, but at least he's trying to think about things from a different direction.
I'm going to actually try to fix it. And so then what did we wind up with in the Middle East? We wind up with the Abraham Accords, which I think are the most important steps towards actual peace in the Middle East that we've ever seen. And if he is able to extend them, they could become even more powerful in that regard. And then, of course, the border, he manages to walk in and fix the border in one day. So I'm kind of open-minded to the idea that, yeah, D.C. is a kind of a cesspool in a lot of ways. It's a dangerous city in a lot of ways. But I don't know, maybe thinking about it from a totally different approach might fix it.
And the thing is, you have to understand that a lot of problems in society, there's more money in the problem being chipped away at than being resolved. So there's usually support mechanisms behind any system, even a bad one, where people are getting paid. So because there's crime, you're going to have these organizations that are funded to take kids off the street and teach them how to play basketball and football. So all of these things are a system underneath the system that if you were to just resolve the issue, so if you were to just start talking about having fathers in the home, that's not going to resolve everything, but it would resolve a lot of the issues. But do they really want to resolve the issues? Or is it easier to keep people enslaved by poverty or enslaved by limited beliefs or enslaved by feeling that everything that happens to them is racist? I think they'd rather that than actually solve the problems.
Emily, you didn't have any type of coverage of this in April when the governor of New Mexico, who's a Democrat, called in the National Guard to help with crime in that city. And good for them because they needed to do something about it. What do you think the legal issues that some of the Democrats are bringing up, saying that this isn't allowed, this is not constitutional? Is that going to hold up?
Right. No, it won't, because I think President Trump has been very clear that he's exercising the specific powers afforded to him there in Washington, D.C. And the mayor acknowledged in reaching out to the attorney general saying, I will be here to collaborate with you. Now, granted, she also pushed back on a lot of issues there, but I see him actually staying squarely within the lane that the Constitution afforded him and meant, by the way, Washington, D.C. to be, which was under federal rule. It was never supposed to be a state adjacent like it has become now. Frankly, that's certainly not what the framers intended. So how did we get here? Let's talk about it. So the laws and policies in D.C., like the Youth Rehabilitation Act and the age of criminalization being 18 and family court diversion, they have been totally distorted. The aim was to protect children from themselves, but we need to be protected from these children.
Yeah.
The rate of recidivism for
Exactly, because they know that these gangs and these criminal elements are recruiting these younger kids. And these younger kids are available to be recruited because they don't have fathers in the house quite often, or they don't have the right support mechanisms. So they recruit these younger kids who they know won't go to jail. Then these kids start a life of crime. And then it's just a cycle. It's a vicious cycle. And these laws have been put in place to say, well, these young black kids, we have to protect them, and it's not fair for them to go to jail or have to come up with bail. You need tougher deterrence. Without the deterrence, they're just going to keep doing it.
For them alone, for these kids, is almost double that of adult recidivism rates. And they are disproportionately committing these violent crimes. So the mayor says crime is down in D.C., but here are the facts. If D.C. was a state, it would be the highest homicide rate. It is 6 times higher than here in New York City. In 2025 alone, there have been 1,600 violent crimes and almost 100 homicides. And vehicle theft is up almost 600% in just 5 years alone. And a final note about the violence and the classification, because you hear a lot from the left when they argue or throw out criticism when they're not saying that things are racist or unable to be fixed. And it's always about, well, it's non-violent or it's a misdemeanor. And all of those classifications have been sort of summarily, magically introduced into the conversation, and it is not based in reality. Talk to any criminal law attorney or a victim or a family member and tell them carjacking's not violent, or these burglaries en masse are not violent, or stalking is not violent, or these burglaries are a misdemeanor, and they will argue with you every step of the way. So DC is the first city, and plenty more will take, I think, this example, which will be whip everyone into shape, the prosecutors, the judges, the law enforcement, get the kids out of this family court. Bravo, President Trump.
And I think secretly, as much as the Democrats will criticize and complain, secretly, they know it's the right thing. They will never support it in public, but they know it's making their streets safer. And even though a lot of them have armed guards or have security, they know that they have family members who don't have that. And if they live in DC, they're at risk as well. So they'll never give credit where credit is due, because you just don't do that in this political system. But I think that secretly they are happy that these things are happening, and city by city, they'll, go through the performative thing of calling it racist and a threat to democracy and all of that. But when the crime rates go down, they're going to take credit for it. So a lot of the things that have happened to bring some of the crime rates down, other than just misappropriating the statistics and reclassifying things, but the things that have legitimately brought crime down, they're going to take credit for it, even if they fought against the thing that actually brought the crime down.
There's a young Democrat named Yemisi Egbobole that I've been getting to know a little bit, and
How's she doing?
She's great, and you're
Oh.
going to like her. She's probably going to be on your show sometime.
She's great.
She's great, and she wrote a piece for Fox Opinion today, basically, Harold, saying that Democrats should not downplay the crime issue, especially for minority neighborhoods, because it's on their minds, and they would like it fixed too, and that maybe they're going to be okay with somebody trying to get a handle on it.
Minority neighborhoods absolutely at their core do want these things. They just keep being told that if someone is coming into their neighborhood to protect them, that it's racist. But on the ground, you want your neighborhood to be safe. If you own a local bodega, you don't want to be getting robbed every week. So you do want these things in place. What Harold is about to say, I love it. And they keep joking with Harold about running for president, but Harold has the temperament and the demeanor and the ability to see things from both sides that would make a very good president. I think he needs to be a little bit more hardcore, but I do like the fact that he always has a nuanced view and he calls balls and strikes.
Right. So good to be back around the table. I try not to put race in everything. And in this instance here, Greg has said something many, many times before about crime. And we were talking about the border in the context about why does the issue have to be, but you're not at all, Dana, but why do we have to talk about race, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican doing it? No one wants their pocketbook stolen. No one wants their kids attacked. No one wants their sister or mom raped. And no one wants their grandfather shot while trying to go get on a train. I read a little while ago that Union Station in D.C. is a place where some of the National Guard will be deployed first. In some other neighborhoods. I've been in the train station early in the morning there in Union Station, and it's trying to navigate a crazy place as you're walking through there. I can imagine if I had my kids with me during that time. I think Democrats need to understand, and Republicans, but Democrats, just to put the politics on it, when President Trump talked about the border during the campaign, and Democrats, for whatever reason, some of the national Democrats and some big voices in the party, particularly the president and some around him, didn't seem to take that as seriously.
It's because it was working to the ends that they wanted. They wanted illegal immigration to bring more illegal workers, to throw off the census, to do all of the things. So that's why they acted like it wasn't a problem. They knew it was a problem. And you see how quickly it was fixed when Trump came back into office. It wasn't a problem before Trump was in office. I mean, it was a problem before Trump got into office, and then he fixed it. Then when he came out of office, it was a problem again. And then he came back in and he fixed it again. It's a matter of ideology. I believe that America is the greatest country on earth, and people will want to go to America. People will want to risk life and limb to get the American dream, but they should do it the right way. And there should be provisions for those people that are legitimately fleeing persecution. But what we see at the border is not that. These are working age men who are coming to either do crime quite often or just to get a better life for themselves and send money back home and all of that. Now, until you're taking care of your citizens, you really should not be allowing that type of things. And the Democrats did it for 4 years. They blamed Republicans. They blamed Trump. They blamed Congress. They blamed everyone except for themselves. But it was a feature and not a bug. It's what they wanted to happen.
That was an issue that hurt us, but more importantly, it was an issue that hurt the country. The crime issue, I heard Kash Patel today say during the press conference, and he was right, that the murder rate has come down. The Mayor Bowser has said the murder rate has come down. But when you live in communities, or you live in neighborhoods where crime is taking place, those statistics mean things. But if you're worried about your kids, worried about yourself, worried about your families, you want someone, and you're expecting government to step up to the plate. I'd say one thing to everybody, New Yorkers, people live in Maryland, people live in Colorado, people live in Illinois, Florida, Georgia. We need to end cash bail. This no cash bail thing has not worked. Now, there were many who thought it might work because you're going to let people were going to jail to they were spending more time waiting for their trial than they were if they got convicted of something. But we're seeing now that the thing doesn't work. There ought to be a bipartisan effort to say, look, let's end it now. Whether you're a Democrat that supports the passage, it just didn't work. And we ought to be willing to admit that any Republican or Democrat has an idea.
It never worked. People screamed that it was not going to work, but they were called racist. Anyone that was saying that this cash bail idea is not a good idea, it's going to allow people to just walk into stores. And that's what you see in those videos. People are just walking into stores. They're not stealing bread and milk and things that they can feed their family. They're stealing Nikes and Adidas, and it's not about survival for them. It's just a criminal element that some people just have to steal if they're able to do it. And by having the no cash bail and by having the soft on crime, it's just basically giving them a wink and saying, yeah, go ahead and do it. And even the security guards are like, I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm not going to risk my life. And the Democrats always knew that this was going to be a problem, but they just let it happen anyway, because they're not the ones that are impacted by these things. They're not the ones impacted when the stores end up closing down in these neighborhoods, because they don't live in the neighborhoods.
It doesn't work. Just admit when it doesn't work. This one has not worked. We should get away from it. Two, our Fox reporter, I can't think of his name, young guy, I see him on Brett Baer's show a lot, and I've seen him on your show in the morning. He asked, I think, the first or second question of President Trump during the press conference, and I think it's a legitimate question. He said, Mr. President, will you be willing to take this to other cities? And the president said, yes. I hope that this template works, that we find a way to take it to Chicago and Baltimore and Memphis and Denver and Atlanta and other places.
Not going to happen in Chicago. You know how hard they are going to fight to keep their streets unsafe? Chicago is mad. People are getting shot left, right, and center. Most of the people that are being shot are black. You have a president that's saying, I'm going to get some law and order back on the streets to protect black lives, because that's who they will be protecting for the most part. And he's called racist. It just doesn't make any sense.
That may need it, where you have communities that are wrecked by crime. And then two, he raised a question, which I'm totally opposed to, the legalization of any drugs. And apparently President Trump and his team are looking at reclassifying marijuana. And the reporter asked, how do you reconcile that if people think that could be a gateway to some other things that these kids are doing? And I thought my former seatmate here and my pal here, who talked about young people, I wouldn't be surprised if there were not drugs that are a part of that, as well as these young people are holding guns and handling guns and committing crimes with guns. It was interesting. I didn't realize you couldn't prosecute a kid unless they kill somebody with the gun or rape somebody with the gun. If they have a gun or they use it, they don't. It doesn't. That has to change. And I hope that the U.S.
That's crazy what he just said. So a young person cannot be prosecuted if they don't use the gun. So if they have a gun in the when they're committing a crime, but they don't use it, then they can't be prosecuted. That's crazy. And these are the stupid laws that have been put in place by people that are never impacted by the laws that they're putting in place.
Attorney there, my friend, is able to change that. And finally, again, I hope that people who want to inject race in this stuff don't. Crime happens. I don't care whom it happens to. I'm not happy if it happens to a Democrat. I'm not happy if it happens to a Republican. I thought the president was trying to was cute with words about you liberals. Liberals don't like crime. Conservatives don't like crime. Blacks don't like crime. Whites don't like crime. Let's get rid of it. And that's why I was pleased and encouraged by what the president did today.
Greg, of course, you're going to comment on whatever you want, but let me set up one thing that occurred to me today.
Ooh, exciting.
Is that President Trump isn't doing this for himself, right? So he lives in the White House. He has car service through the Secret Service. He gets to go to Mar-a-Lago. He goes to his place, what's it called? The nice place, Bedminster. And so it's like he's wanting to make the city better for other people. And he's like, okay, well, I have the power to try to help. So he says, we might as well give this a shot.
Most of the big questions that he addresses are like that. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that? Whether it is the border or the Middle East or this, it's like he'll look at war and you'll think, oh, he's so simplistic about saying what a waste.
And this is the thing, and people label it differently. It depends on if you are a Trump supporter or if you oppose Trump. If you are a Trump supporter, you see that this is a person that didn't need to run for president. He didn't need to put himself, his family, and his life in the line of fire to be president. People that support Trump see that. People that oppose Trump can see the exact opposite. They're like, he did it all for himself. He did it out of hubris and he did it out of ego. It just depends on what your worldview is. But if you think about it, I keep saying this, when they keep calling him a dictator or a wannabe dictator, just read a history book. There are no dictators who decided to be dictators after they were wealthy, had everything they wanted, and the final stages of their life. They're in their late 70s and early 80s. It just doesn't happen that way. Most of the time, these dictators are coming from nowhere, or they're coming from a background. They don't have much, and they ascend, they seize power, and that's not what is happening here. You have someone that for the last 30 years has been saying, I don't want to see America get ripped off. I think people are taking advantage of America. When they asked him if he'd run for president, he said, well, at some point, if I felt that nobody else was resolving the problem, I would do that. And I'm not in the man's mind, but his actions would indicate that he's not doing these things purely, partially maybe, but purely out of pride and hubris and ego. A lot of these things, he just thinks that he can fix it because he's a business person. So if you see it through that lens, then you'll see his actions a little bit different, and maybe you'll be able to display a little bit more grace, because you'll see that maybe he is just trying to make things better for other people, because he doesn't need to do this. He has better things he could do with his time and money. He could be out playing golf if he wanted.
He looks at war, he says, what a waste. All these people dying. They could be working and making money. That's how he thinks. And he's like, all these people dying, carjacking, that's bad. And all the academics are like, oh, he's so simple. Sorry, dude. He's right. You know what? I used to look at life, Dana, as something that everything would go my way. And when things go wrong, that would be the exception. I realized that it's the opposite, that life is actually a series of inconveniences. And when something goes right, that you should be grateful. That's Trump. You know, if you look at Trump expecting a smooth ride, you're insane, right? But if you accept his brash, confrontational, unpredictable style as the system, when you get these big gifts, whether it is the closed border or the Abraham Accords, you go, wow, that's something else, and you're grateful for it. Trump is the human embodiment of life itself. In that, it's challenging, it's unpredictable, it's a bit wild, it could be scary, but when things go right, it's wonderful and it's huge. I wasn't planning on saying that, but you asked me that question. Can I talk about crime?
Do whatever you want.
All right. The homicide rate is 6 times higher in D.C. than in New York City. It's 18 times higher than Havana. Carjacking is up 547% from 2018 to 2023. The D.C. police commander was suspended for changing crime stats to make it look like they had dropped. They would report something that involved a gun or a knife as a felony assault because the FBI uniform crime system doesn't report felony assaults. This is the nation's capital. This is where a lot of people come because it's our capital. It's like going to Disneyland and their oldest, greatest ride is a bottomless pit with spikes in the bottom. It's like you get there and you go, this is what the country's about? Now, imagine if we didn't care at all, if the adults just went home and got cigarettes, or just left home, got cigarettes, didn't come back.
He's about to say something that I've been saying for a while. The other thing I like about Greg, and maybe I need to start doing this, he takes notes as the other people are speaking, and then that's why he can deliver these things that on the surface are kind of silly and kind of funny, but they're deep in what he's actually saying. But he's about to say something that I've said, and I don't understand how more people don't see it. Like, for certain segments of the population, and for Trump and the administration, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you see a city in peril and you leave it and then you focus on other cities, they're like, oh, that's racist. All he cares about is his rich friends in the white neighborhoods. If he goes in and tries to do something, it's all racist because all he does is focus on black and brown people. It's like, there's no way of winning. And this is why you have to change your worldview to one that you view things through a principled stand. If you want a safe neighborhood, it shouldn't matter if it's black, white, blue, or green. You should just want safe neighborhoods. If you want crime to just run rampant, then it shouldn't matter if it's black, white, blue, or green either. But if it's that thing where, like, if white people move into a neighborhood, it's called gentrification. If they move out of the neighborhood, it's called white flight. What is supposed to happen? We should all be able to just live together, get along, live where you want to live amongst the people you want to live with. But we shouldn't have a label for everything. Some things just happen because they just happen.
that would be racist. But if you decide to stay and save the cities from this progressive ideology that only makes it unlivable for everybody but politicians, then that's racist too. So if you stay and help, it's racist. If you choose to leave, white flight, that's racist too. But why can't you leave if you're not wanted? How was that racist? Turns out that's the Democrat Party. People are leaving that. They're leaving colleges that are anti-Semitic. They're leaving cities that are dangerous. Turns out the intolerant few causes the many to leave. You notice this. No cash bail. You bring that up. You brought this up a lot. Probably, what, a dozen times in the last 2 years?
At least.
Everybody agrees. Why doesn't it change? We need to ask, why is no cash bail still around? Who is it profiting? Who is it benefiting if everybody agrees? And why can't we just stop it? There's something going on there.
The president should executive order that too.
Amen.
All right. Well, maybe we'll.
The thing is with that, I think it's the very vocal few. As with so many of these cultural issues, it's the vocal few that bully and scare the normal people and the majority of people into not saying or doing anything, because the moment you oppose it, they'll call you racist, sexist, homophobic. And these are three labels that you can't disprove. Like, if you are a white male and someone calls you racist, there's not a thing you could say or do to disprove that. You could be a white male who's married to a black woman, and you could say, well, I'm married to a black woman. And they'd say, you just married a black woman, that you could be racist and say you're married to a black woman. There's no winning. There's absolutely no winning. And that's why we need more bold people that are going to not be afraid of being canceled. And I think that's what's happened. I think since Trump has started this new term, there's a lot more people that are willing to just say enough is enough. This is stupid. Let's just do what we've been doing since the beginning of time, as far as recognizing that boys should not play in girl sports, and boys are boys and girls are girls, and we respect each other, and some people make different choices and you don't have to hate them. But I should have the right to say, what I think. And I think that's where we're moving. I'm trying to add to the conversation. So, as I always say, I'm just a guy with Wi-Fi and a camera. I try to discuss things in a nuanced way, give my point of view. I can be wrong. I'm not a political genius or a political analyst. I'm just adding my voice. If you've watched this even a couple minutes and you found it entertaining, make sure that you subscribe. This is a tiny channel. There's just a few of us. Make sure that you leave comments. Even if you disagree, I always try to respond to all the comments, even the bad ones. And make sure you watch some of my other videos. I have some good videos coming up about Jasmine Crockett, because apparently she didn't grow up in the hood. I have some other videos coming up just responding to Black Conservative Perspective, to Fox News, to The Five, to Greg Gutfeld. But yeah,